If your teen is refusing school, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. More often, it means they're dealing with something real, either internally or externally, and they don't have a workable plan yet. So the goal isn't to shame them into showing up. The goal is to be the steady, compassionate partner who can hold two truths at the same time. I believe you, this is hard, and school still matters, and we're going to find a way forward together. Welcome to Parents and Teens Rising, the podcast that bridges the gap between parents and teens and helps families thrive. I'm Jasmine Chandler, teen and parent coach, wilderness rites of passage guide, and founder of Guided Passages. After over 16 years of working with young people, I know how challenging and rewarding these years can be. Each week, we'll explore real conversations, practical tools, and fresh perspectives to help you connect with your teen, support their confidence, and navigate the ups and downs. Let's rise together. Hey everyone, welcome back into the podcast. Thanks so much for being here today. I want to do a little check-in. How is everyone doing? How are you holding up with everything going on in the world, inside your homes? How are you holding up with your own teenagers, with your relationship, with how you're feeling inside, your life balance, and all of the things? I just want to invite you to just do a little self-check-in right now. How am I doing today? I think so often we just keep on grinding, keep on pushing. But those little moments of mindfulness to just check in with ourselves and see how we're doing, see if we need maybe an extra breath or maybe a glass of water or just a quiet moment by ourselves, by a tree or whatever it might be. I just want to invite you to that little moment of self-reflection today. I hope you're all doing really well out there. I'm doing really great. Today I'm actually recording this on a weekend. I have kind of the whole day to get caught up with a few things and to get my house back in order and all the things. I actually decided not to go 5 hours away to a one-day volleyball tournament thing today for my daughter because sometimes it's like you just can't do it all. And I also want to kind of invite that. I feel like as parents, we feel like we have to show up for every single thing all the time. And sometimes when we do that, it can stretch us a little bit too thin. And for me, the last few weeks, I've just had a lot on my plate, a lot going on, some different challenging technical difficulties in my business that really kind of threw me for a loop. And then also just a backlog of some things that just needed to get done. I needed to get my little dog shaved, she's like so hairy right now that she can hardly see out of her eyes and, just household chores, bathrooms and all the things and a few projects for work, helping my son apply for scholarships. The deadline is in a couple days to submit all of his scholarship applications for college, just all the things. And I was like, you know what? I am going to just send her off with my husband this time and I'll be at the next one. And that's okay, right? It's okay to kind of find that balance between when it feels really good to show up, when we need to take a little bit of a break, and all of those things. So that's kind of where I'm at today. I'm feeling really good. Yesterday, I was able to actually even take a hike and have a sauna and do a little bit of self-care, hang out with my son, just him and I, watching some cheesy comedy movies, and that just felt really good. So today we're going to be talking about school avoidance, or those mornings or even stretches of time where your teen melts down, shuts down, complains of feeling sick, or outright just refuses to go to school. So if this is happening in your house, I want to really start with some compassion for them and for you. A teen refusing school is not automatically a reflection of your parenting or proof you're doing something wrong. In many cases, school avoidance is really a sign of real distress, anxiety, overwhelm, or a problem at school that feels unmanageable for your teen. So this week, I'm going to be drawing on some experts in the field, including some key ideas from Dr. Lisa D'Amour, who emphasizes that the most helpful place to start is really understanding the why underneath the teen's resistance. And from there, we can really take their distress seriously without letting avoidance become the long-term solution. And we partner with them on a step-by-step plan to return. So by the end of this episode today, you're going to have a clear understanding of what school avoidance or school refusal is and why it's showing up for so many families right now. You're also going to understand the most common underlying drivers behind school refusal and what each one is really communicating. And then we're going to talk about what not to do in the morning so you don't accidentally strengthen the avoidance loop, and also give a compassionate 3-step plan to move from chaos to a workable return plan for school, as well as a shame-free reframe for teens who dislike school, plus practical ways to make school feel more manageable without lowering our expectations. So first of all, I want to talk about what school avoidance is and what's happening underneath the surface. So school avoidance or school refusal is not the same thing as a teen just not liking school. School refusal is often linked to anxiety, emotional distress, or feeling unsafe or overwhelmed at school. And that's why I'm going to be drawing on guidance from Stony Brook Medicine, which is an academic medical center and hospital system connected to Stony Brook University, where clinicians publish parent education based on real pediatric and adolescent care. They explain that school refusal can really be a symptom associated with anxiety disorders and other mental health concerns, and it can significantly impact a child's education, well-being, and family life. It's also more common than many parents realize. A national survey from the Kids Mental Health Foundation found that among parents whose child missed school due to fear or anxiety, about 30% said their child missed more than a week. So if your household feels like, why are we the only ones dealing with this? You're not. But here's one thing I hope you'll take away from this episode. School refusal is a signal. It's information. And the fastest way forward is to stop reading it as a character flaw and start approaching it as a clue, something we can understand and respond to with a plan. All right, so let's talk about some of the most common drivers. So number one, social stress. For a lot of teens, school avoidance is really about social stress, and that can include bullying, exclusion, friend drama, embarrassment, or the constant feeling of being judged. And many teens would rather say, I'm sick, than admit, I'm scared, because fear feels really vulnerable. All right, and number two is academic overwhelm. So sometimes the distress is all about academics, not motivational. They may be falling behind, facing a class that feels impossible, or carrying quiet shame about not keeping up. And in some cases, an undiagnosed learning difference is part of the picture, which makes school feel like a daily setup for failure. Number three is anxiety that is turned into avoidance. So this one is a big driver. When a teen avoids school, they often feel immediate relief, and that relief teaches the brain that avoidance is the way to feel better. And over time, what this does is the pattern can really make the anxiety grow because school starts to feel even more threatening the longer they stay away. All right, number four is burnout, depression, and exhaustion. So for other teens, school refusal might be rooted in low capacity. They might feel physically unwell, depleted, or too exhausted to function. And those physical complaints can be how anxiety or depression show up, especially for teens who don't have the words yet to describe what's happening internally. So when your teen says, I can't, our job is to get really curious about what can't actually means and to respond to the real problem underneath it. And this is where I want to bring in a key idea from Dr. Lisa D'Amour. She emphasizes that when a teen refuses school, the most helpful first move is not a bigger consequence or a longer lecture. It's actually a calm, open conversation that helps you understand what's underneath the resistance so you can work together on a solution. So in other words, you're not trying to win an argument, you're actually trying to gather information. So instead of doing this in the heat of the morning, pick a calmer time later in the day and lead with something like, I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to understand what's making school feel so hard. And then keep it really simple and explore a few main areas. So you can ask things like, is this about people? Is this about pressure or grades? Is this about anxiety or feeling exposed or judged? Is there something happening at school that doesn't feel okay or doesn't feel safe? And then here's one question I love because it gets you out of the vague and into the really specific, and that's what part of the day feels the hardest? Because a teen may not be avoiding school as a whole. They may just be avoiding lunch or the hallway or a specific class or a specific teacher or maybe a presentation or a test or one particular social moment that they're feeling nervous about. And that detail really matters because once you know what the hardest part is, you can stop guessing and start asking for the right type of support. All right, so let's talk about the morning because that's where this tends to blow up fast. When a teen is flooded and a parent is stressed, it's easy to fall into a few patterns that accidentally make school avoidance stronger. So first, long debates almost never help. An anxious brain doesn't talk itself into calm. And the more you argue or try to persuade, the more dysregulated and stuck everyone becomes. Second, big consequences in the heat of the moment usually backfire. They ramp up the nervous system, turn the morning into a control battle, and make it harder to get to the real goal, which is a workable plan and steady follow through. And third, when we make staying home feel like a full on relief day, that can quietly reinforce the pattern. If staying home means sleeping in, comfort, and recreational screens all day, their brain learns a simple association: avoidance equals relief. And then the resistance is more likely to show up again tomorrow. So this isn't about punishment, it's about not accidentally training avoidance to become their coping strategy. All right, so here's a 3-step compassionate plan that you can start using. Step 1, calm the system. So when your teen is flooded, they can't problem solve. And when you're flooded, it's hard to lead with steadiness. In the moment, keep your language short and supportive and repeat it as needed. You might say something like, I totally believe that you're having a hard time right now. And we're just going to take this step by step. And then anchor it with calm, clear expectations. School is still the plan, and I'm going to help you get there. And after that, slow everything down: your voice, your pace, your words. And if your teen is still panicking, treat it like panic, not like defiance. So your calm is going to become the container that really helps their nervous system settle, right? And that's co-regulation. That's something that we talk about all the time on this podcast, right? The more that we have that calm, grounded presence, the more that helps them to calm themselves down. All right. And then step number 2 is to clarify the driver. So once things are calmer, so maybe later in the day, shift into information gathering mode. So this isn't about convincing your teen to feel differently. It's about understanding what's actually underneath the refusal so you can solve the right problem. So you can ask questions that invite honesty and specifics like, what are you worried will happen if you go? Or what part of the day feels the worst? You can also ask things like, if you could change one thing that would make school doable, what would it be? And is there one adult at school you feel safe with? And then their answers are going to give you a roadmap, because the plan looks very different depending on whether the issue is lunch, a specific class, a specific person, or the fear of falling behind. All right, and then we move into step 3, which is coordinate a gradual reentry plan. All right, and this is where things often start to shift, because you stop trying to solve it alone and you build a team around your teen. So reach out to the school and ask for a quick meeting or phone call with the people who can support a return plan, like the school counselor, the school psychologist, or social worker, or maybe attendance staff, or a trusted teacher or administrator. And when you talk to them, remember what the clear goal is, and that is to make school feel more doable while your teen rebuilds their confidence in their capacity. And that usually means requesting a few specific supports, such as a designated safe adult to check in with at arrival, or maybe a soft landing plan for the first 10 minutes of the day, or a safe place option during a tough block like lunch, and temporary adjustments if your teen is behind academically. And if full days feel impossible right now, you can also work with the school on a gradual schedule, starting with shorter days and adding time back in step by step, or even a hybrid model where they do part of their classes online and part of them in person. And this approach is really strongly aligned with clinical guidance. So the Children's Hospital of Colorado, which is a major pediatric hospital that publishes evidence-informed resources for families and clinicians, emphasizes gradual reintroduction, consistent expectations, and reinforcing attendance as key parts of addressing school refusal. And New York Presbyterian, which is a large academic hospital system with youth mental health resources, notes that shortened days and gradual reentry schedules can be helpful accommodations when a teen is struggling. And finally, if refusal persists or the distress is escalating, bring in support, whether that's the school counselor, a mental health professional, or a coach who can help your teen build coping skills, confidence, and a step-by-step plan to get back on track. All right, so next I want to talk about another point that's really important to remember. Even when nothing terrible is happening, many teens complain about school. And Lisa Damore offers a really cool reframe for this one too that I love, because it lowers shame and increases cooperation. She describes school as something she's labeled as a compulsory buffet. And what this means is that teens are required to try everything being served, whether or not it fits their tastes or their interests right now. Time actually published her piece on teen motivation, which is called How to Help Teenagers Stay Motivated at School. And this is where she discusses this buffet metaphor. And what she says is that as adults, we get to choose our menu, but teens don't. So here's the shift I really want you to make. Treat their dislike as information, not a character issue. When we treat their resistance like a character flaw, we get power struggles. When we treat it like a normal developmental response to a system that doesn't always fit, we can actually work with them. So instead of fix your attitude, try something more matter of fact and shame free, like, I get it. You don't have to love every class. And I know some of them actually really suck. But you do need to find a way to make the ones you dislike tolerable enough to get through. One thing we can share with them is that being in uncomfortable, not so fun situations is something that we actually need to have some skills to manage because life will often ask that of us. Working a full-time job, for example, isn't always fun or exciting. So having skills to stick things out and make them feel more doable is actually a super important skill that you're building, even if you're not actually learning anything of value in the class itself. All right, and then from there, you can shift into problem solving together. You might ask, what do you think would be the most helpful to make this feel more manageable right now? Maybe a study buddy or a tutor might help. Or would you like me to sit down with you for 30 minutes every day to go over the assignments for the class and help you make sense of it? Or would sitting at a different location in the class, if that's an option, be helpful? Or do we need to revisit possibly getting your schedule changed so that you can swap out of this class for another one? And then you can also explore whether there's a teacher they feel comfortable getting support from and decide on a realistic goal. Something like, what's the minimum grade we're aiming for here so that we can protect your energy for the things you care about? Another part of Damore's guidance is to remember that teenagers' tastes change. A class that feels unbearable now might become interesting later, so we can really invite openness without pretending they should love it. And she also points out that if a teen has zero interest in school and also isn't developing any interests outside of school, it's worth bringing in extra support because most healthy teens have some pull towards something, even if it isn't academic. And I want to just keep this real for a minute because our academic system and curriculum in the US actually kind of sucks. For many teens, it doesn't feel relevant to real life. And instead of learning skills they can actually use and apply, they often learn a lot of facts and rote memorization instead of true critical thinking skills. And a lot of teens experience school as something they have to just get through, not something that feels relevant to their real life. And yes, that's a big generalization and it varies a lot depending on the teacher. But even with great teachers, they're still tied to curriculum and grading and standardized testing. And the system often ends up feeling like a one-size-fits-all type of situation. And the data actually reinforces what so many parents hear at home. In a nationwide survey of more than 21,000 US high school students, researchers at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence found that the feelings teens most often associate with school are tired, stressed, and bored. And in a separate national survey, Pew Research Center reported that 4 in 10 teens say they feel bored every day or almost every day. So when your teen seems uninspired by school or resistant to going, it doesn't automatically mean they're lazy or that you have failed. For many teens, that reaction is a pretty understandable response to an environment that can feel repetitive, highly controlled, and disconnected from what matters to them. So if your teen doesn't like school or doesn't want to go, that can be a very normal reaction to an environment that often feels restrictive, repetitive, and not especially inspiring. In my coaching work, I hear this all the time. Teens often feel uninspired by school, like they're doing a lot of work without seeing the point. And that doesn't mean we lower expectations or throw our hands up. It means we take the shame out of it, assume there's a real reason underneath the resistance, and then help them build a plan and the skills to navigate it. All right, and if you want something practical for tomorrow, I would recommend focusing on 3 things. Lower the friction, keep your tone calm, and aim for one doable next step instead of a perfect morning. So tonight you can take 5 minutes to set up the basics so you're not negotiating every detail at 7 a.m. And that might look like checking what time they need to be out the door, confirming a ride plan, and asking a simple question like, what would make tomorrow 10% easier? And you're not handing them control of the whole plan, you're inviting them into a plan that they're more likely to follow. And then in the morning, keep it short and steady. You're not trying to convince them, you're communicating safety and structure. So you might say, I know this is hard. We just need to take the next step. You've got this. And if they truly cannot go that day, keep the message clear. Staying home is for getting regulated and catching up, not escaping life. So keep it low-key and structured with expectations like getting up by a set time, a short schoolwork block, some exercise, and a household chore or two. And then set clear limits around TV and screen time, ideally setting the expectation that they are off devices during the school day hours. This way, you're being compassionate and not pushing them beyond their capacity without accidentally teaching their brain that avoidance is the best and easiest solution. All right, so let's go ahead and move into our wrap up here. Today, we covered what school avoidance actually is and why it's so often connected to real stress, anxiety, overwhelm, or something at school that feels unmanageable. We walked through the most common drivers from social stress and academic pressure to anxiety that is turned into avoidance and burnout or low capacity. We also talked about what to avoid in the morning so you don't get pulled into long debates, big consequences in the heat of the moment, or relief patterns that make staying home feel like the easiest option. And then we laid out a clear way forward with the calm, clarify, coordinate plan. So regulate first, gather specific information about what part of the day is hardest, and bring the school into a gradual re-entry plan with real supports. And finally, we zoomed out with Dr. Lisa Damour's compulsory buffet reframe so that we can really take the shame out of the equation and help our teens build the life skills of getting through what they don't love while still protecting their energy and confidence. So just remember, if your teen is refusing school, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. More often, it means they're dealing with something real, either internally or externally, and they don't have a workable plan yet. So the goal isn't to shame them into showing up. The goal is to be the steady, compassionate partner who can hold two truths at the same time. I believe you, this is hard, and school still matters, and we're going to find a way forward together. So if you take one action after this episode, let it be this. Get clear on what's driving the refusal, loop in the school, and start a gradual reentry plan. Small steps, steady expectations, and the right support team can change the entire trajectory. And if you're realizing you want more support with this, coaching for your teen can be a great place to start, especially if anxiety and avoidance have become a pattern. My 12-week coaching programs, Rise Up and Ignite, help teens and young adults aged 12 to 24 move from anxiety and avoidance to confidence and action with tools, accountability, and steady mentorship so they're not trying to figure this out alone. So if you feel like you've been banging your head against the wall or you're lying awake at night worrying because it's so hard to feel okay when your teen is struggling, I want you to really hear this. You do not have to keep doing this alone. This is heavy, and it makes sense that it's taking up so much space in your mind and heart. Reach out for support, whether that's your school team, a mental health professional, or coaching support for your teenager. This is the work I do every day with teens, and I'd be truly honored to help your teen build the skills and momentum to make school and life feel doable again. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye, everyone. Did you enjoy the show? If so, would you take 30 seconds to subscribe so you don't miss an episode? Leave a quick review so more parents can find these conversations and maybe even share this episode to your stories. And if you want to connect, please send me a DM on Instagram. I'm at jasmine.guidedpassages, and that's Jasmine with a Y. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll talk to you next week.